Welcome back to the $2 Film Club. Today we are continuing our deep dive into horror franchises with one of my personal favorite ones, even though I haven't seen all of them until just recently, but whatever. Today we're talking about the Evil Dead franchise, pioneered by the one and only Sam Raimi. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how to start this. The timeline of these movies is really weird because, as Ryan and I were talking about right before this franchise has one of the weird, like, the one of the weirdest rights holders like issues probably in the history of cinema, because like every movie is owned by a different company, which is just so awkward. Especially when you're watching the movies and like trying to do a marathon, because the Evil Dead right now at least is on Paramount Plus. Evil Dead 2 is on Amazon or HBO Max. Um, Army of Darkness I don't think is on anything right now. Evil Dead 2013, the remake, is on Hulu, and then Evil Dead Rises on HBO Max. So it's really odd. Just it's all over the place, and you can kind of tell when you're watching the movies. But anyways, uh, I kind of want to do them in order, just seeing the evolution of the franchise. But I kind of want to get your first thoughts overall on the franchise as a whole. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Ash vs. Evil Dead is on the stars, obviously.
Yeah, I'm like, we're not gonna be like going deep into Ash versus Evil Dead, but I definitely think it's gonna be at least an interesting talking point in the context of this series, just because the franchise as a whole just has a very like not I don't want to say complicated because like yeah it's been complicated, but it's also just been kind of weird through the initial idea of like Evil Dead being put out in like a short like version in a short film years before the first Evil Dead was made.
Oh,
And
you mean the proof of concept?
yeah, like but it wasn't like a proof of concept because
I
they
mean, it kind of
made it.
was.
I mean, it was, but like, okay, this is the weird thing. I don't think it's they'll ever state this, and I know Evil Dead is stated as Evil Dead 2, but I think Evil Dead is still a proof of concept for what he wanted to do for Evil Dead 2, even though they're still kind of tonally different films. I just think it's really interesting to go from 1978, which the original title for that the original short film proof of concept was Within the Woods. I
Yeah.
don't know if I like that. I'm glad they changed the title.
Well, you know what the movie was originally going to be called?
No,
Originally, it was going to be called The Book of the Dead, but one
that's
of the
right.
producers, I'm trying to remember who it was.
I
He had
think
a
Robert,
funny
probably
name.
Robert Taper, right?
No, it was a different guy. He had like an interesting name. Hold on a second. Ah, fuck, it doesn't say who. Whatever. One of the producers told Raimi that they should change the name because he didn't want to bore like young audiences by having it be a literary reference, which I just think is kind of funny. I do like the title, The Evil Dead. It sounds better than like the Book of the Dead, but
Well, I like the actual name. It's the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, like
well,
the
it's
actual
different in the
book.
first one though, because they call it what it's called in
Well,
like Evil Dead
I
Rise and
think
Evil
that's
Dead.
I think that's an unfair statement to say that's not what the first one did, because I feel like between the first one, the second, Army of Darkness, and then the remake and Rise, I think just conceptually they're all different films that kind of just borrow different things from each other.
Yeah,
That's why going back to what you were asking before about the whole like my thoughts about the franchise. I think that's why I like it so much
mm,
because each film, like you get your standard. It's 2013, but like your standard
2010
remake.
remake.
Yeah, 2010, early 2000s remake of a cult or classic old horror film from like the 80s. But then you have like Evil Dead 2, where it's just kind of tonally and totally different from the original. But like Evil Dead 2 is so different from films in the same stature than those, because it kind of just feels like a soft reboot slash reset. Like the Evil Dead, going back to what I was saying before, feels like a very proof of concept for what I think Sam Raimi wanted to do, because I don't think Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness get as gory as the Evil Dead. Would you
It
agree?
it depends on how you define gory, because obviously Evil Dead 2 has, I think, a lot more like blood effects. But I do agree with what you're
I don't
saying.
think it's
Like
inherently as
the
violent.
Evil Dead is much more grotesque.
Like, dude, in Evil Dead 2, I always forget, like, when I go back and watch it, I always forget the scene of his girlfriend after she gets possessed in the beginning, just dancing outside
Oh,
in the, like, claymation.
the
And
shitty stop motion.
yeah, but, like, it's so, like, what, bro? It's so just jarringly different from the first one that
Yeah,
this is not me saying, like, it's a good or a bad thing.
yeah.
It's just more of a very interesting thing, and that's why I consider like the Evil Dead more of a proof of concept, because I
Mm.
feel like Army of Darkness is definitely more tonally in line with Evil Dead 2, and honestly, I'd say even Evil Dead Rise is adjacent to Evil Dead 2 more than the Evil Dead and Evil Dead remake. Like,
I mean, the thing with Evil Dead Rise is obviously it's not trying to be like Evil Dead. It's not trying to be as like funny, which is,
no, but it's got that witty humor that
yeah.
is
I mean, yeah,
dark and grim that you get with Evil Dead 2, that you
yes,
get in The Evil Dead, but they really hammer it in Evil Dead 2.
yeah. The whole what's it called? Fuck, I always forget the name of it. The subgenre.
Oh, like dark comedy?
No, it's like a play on slapstick, splatstick.
Oh,
That's what it's
splatstick.
called. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very much what this franchise is. It's very splatstick. I mean, I wouldn't say the franchise, but like definitely Evil Dead
I mean, more
2
Evil
and
Dead
Army
2
of
and Army of Darkness.
Darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like what the Evil Dead does as like a standalone film. I don't know how like quick I would be to return to it, but I mean definitely over like the 2013 one, which you and I will get into because we talked about it a little bit when I watched it last night. Um, but I don't know. There's just a very unique charm and quality to that movie in comparison to the other ones, just given how fucking low budget it is.
Well,
Um,
I think the thing with the Evil Dead that inherently has that charm to it that I think makes it that more rewatchable, not in comparison to Evil Dead, I'm just talking about in general, is
mm,
because it feels like one of those old, this is going to get me into Hollywood, that broke them into Hollywood type of films. You know, they just made it to make it, and it's just one of those things that caught on. And you watch it, and you feel like you're watching them kind of put it together in real time,
yeah,
and that's kind of the beauty in it. That's the beauty of it, I think.
I do. It is funny because I know a little bit of like of the background of the first three films in the franchise. The Evil Dead is just such an interesting case study because obviously it's Sam Raimi kind of figuring out like what his directing style is, because the first stuff in the movie, like the first 30 minutes or so, is very like, I don't know what the right word for it is, but it's very simplistic, and it definitely looks like a low budget indie movie in the way that it's not just like it's framed but blocked. Like the perfect example is that like dinner scene when Bruce Campbell's character Ash is making that like funny toast. It's not very interesting and it's shot very weirdly. But then once you get to like the end where Ash is just alone, and I know all of that shit because most of the cast and crew left after they were done with all their stuff because they had such a miserable time making this movie. And so pretty much most of the third act is just Sam Raimi and his brother and like a couple others and Bruce just fucking, you know, grinding it out with each other to like fix some of the issues and make it a more cohesive story. And that's where you can really see like the stuff that saturates Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness in a lot of Sam Raimi's later work.
No, I absolutely agree. I it's just funny because it just feel this is very much one of those films that feels very me and my friends got together in
And made a movie.
in a cabin for the weekend and just made a movie that we thought of at the top of our heads. Like no script. Like they had all that, but just to think about how much money like the original Within the Woods was used to make in comparison to Evil Dead. And like I have you ever seen like clips of Within the Woods, by the way?
Yes, I don't think it's like fully available to
Yeah,
watch
I was gonna
anymore.
say I've seen like clips here and there, but like
Yeah,
the full thing isn't available. But it was produced for only 1,600, while originally Raimi required at least a minimum of 100 grand to make this film, but winded up making getting it for 375, which is a very interesting give for 19 what this would
81
be 81 at the no
or 78
1979
or yeah.
78 at the time probably, but this movie turned out to be a massive fucking hit at the box office and winded up earning 29.4 million dollars, um and that's overseas and US. But this is the funniest part: out of that 29.4 million, only 2.4 million came from the US. 27 million came from overseas. So,
That kind of
yeah.
surprises me because I know like at least in the UK it got banned or it was put on the video nasty list, which back then was essentially like banned movies. Although I think now that I'm thinking about it, I think that wasn't really like it was probably more of like a home video type deal because I think on home video it was allowed to be sold uncensored or uncut.
Yeah, I think that was, oh man, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think it was, yeah, I think that was when the home release came out. But regardless, like I think this film just ultimately works off charm and Bruce Campbell's undying just enthusiasm. Like he's probably one of like the most likable actors that I find myself watching, and I think that only increases with each film. By the time I think you get to Army of the Dead, you're just like fully attached to Ash Williams and you're there with him,
Oh
and
yeah.
you're just like, Ash, embrace me, hold me, please. You kind of wish you were the girl at the superstore at the end. He grabs and says, "Hail to the king, baby."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just love the evolution of Bruce Campbell as an actor in these movies too, because obviously in like the first one, he's not really experienced as an actor. He's still doing a good job, and by the end of it, you really do find Ash Williams like a really compelling protagonist. But in the second one, like just even in the small couple of intro scenes that he has with Linda, like he's funny in like because I didn't really like the toast scene. I didn't think it was funny. I didn't understand what the joke was supposed to be. But then in the second one, I also didn't understand the joke, but I still thought it was funny. Um, and he's very charismatic. And I also it was kind of funny because I started watching Evil Dead 2 on like a there was like a sale on Amazon Prime, so I bought it digitally. And then I just started watching it, and both my aunt and my brother were in the room, and they started kind of watching it with me. And then fast forward, I started watching Ash versus Evil Dead, and so my aunt was also watching that. She watched the whole thing with me, and then I realized like halfway through season 3, I was like, "Damn, I kind of wish I had shown my aunt Army of Darkness first." And so I went back and I showed it to her, and then he came on screen, and she was like, "Fuck, is that him?" And I was like, "Yeah, he used to be really good looking." And he's just got this intense aura about him that works so well with the character of Ash. And I also love the way that Bruce kind of explains it in the featurettes for Army of Darkness that Ash is kind of like the real life Bugs Bunny.
No, it's totally true. It literally is true. That's funny. I didn't know like he said that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just nobody else can play Ash the way that Campbell does.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. This, like, not even the Evil Dead, but the franchise just feels very Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi. That's it. This is the baby, because it inherently just goes back to their friendship. The two of them being friends. What
Yeah.
was it, since middle school or high school, something like that,
Yeah, something like that.
and they just worked on the first one together, and it's just crazy to see that their like friendship came such a long way, and like the industry, and Bruce Campbell and him are producers on the newer ones, and so it's very interesting to see just like the evolution of this franchise, especially once you get into the second one, which goes by Evil Dead 2, but then also Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. So it's kind of one of those like mixed titles that people always kind of refer to. It's very
I
weird.
think the Dead by Dawn subtitle is for like overseas stuff.
Yeah, but it says theatrical poster here.
Mm. Oh, you mean on the
Anyhow,
Wikipedia?
yeah, just on the Wikipedia. However,
Mm.
though, this movie came out 6 years later in 1987 on March 13th. The budget significantly blew up for this one to $3.5 million, only racking in 5.9 million. This is also one of those franchises that I feel like after the first one started become a very, I don't think niche is the right word, but it had a very specific audience after that first one, especially once it started doing the genre and tone flipping in
Oh
this.
yeah, yeah.
Because how did you feel about that once it went away from less the horror and more of the splatstick comedy angle of it all?
Well, so here's the thing though. I hadn't seen The Evil Dead until like a week ago. So my introduction to the franchise was Evil Dead 2 because the reason that is I was going to watch them in order, and this is like before Evil Dead Rise came out as well. I was going to watch them in order because the Evil Dead was on Netflix and then Evil Dead 2 was on Hulu, and I don't think Army of Darkness was on anything. Army of Darkness is like never on anything. But
I had to
anyways,
rent it, bro.
yeah. But anyways, I went to go watch The Evil Dead on Netflix, and I got like 5 minutes in, and it wouldn't get past that point. Like it would just keep buffering, and this was a problem. And I wasn't watching it on like a streaming app. I was watching it on like the browser of my laptop, and that was kind of like an ongoing issue with my browser. For some reason, it just wouldn't play past a certain runtime on like certain films. So I abandoned watching it, and I knew going into it that Evil Dead 2 was kind of like a soft reboot. So I was like, well, maybe I can just get away with watching Evil Dead 2. And so that's what I did. I watched Evil Dead 2, and so my this is what I think of when I think of the Evil Dead franchise. I This is my favorite of all of them. Not that it's perfect, but I don't know. This one's just a lot more interesting to watch. The horror aspects are done, I think, better, and I do appreciate the slapstick stuff as well. It's just really funny, and obviously, Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell and all of them have like come into their own as filmmakers, so it feels like a much more cohesive watch than The Evil Dead is.
Yeah, and the thing that just kind of frustrates me with this film is that they always refer to it, and when I say them, I mean like Raimi, the people who made it. They have consistently said that this is a sequel to the
It's
first
not.
one, and I just don't know how they stand by that, because it is so obviously a different film that they literally just do the exact same movie. My thing is, you can see how this film was turned into the first one. Literally, you have
I
four
mean, it's the same
characters.
plot.
It's the
It
same
just
plot. You sell four characters instead of making two separate plot lines. Just make them all friends. Put them in the cabin already. Like it. that's the thing that frustrates me about this is because I think it overcomplicates itself a little bit and deters my enjoyment. Like, I really don't like the first two-thirds of the Nobi daughter stuff. I'm trying to
Hmm.
remember the names of the character. Um,
Shit, I don't remember either. Hold on.
Bobby Joe, Jake, and Annie Nobi, like all of them, like their path to the cabin, I feel like doesn't really offer anything outside of giving us more background on what the Book of the Dead is, which I don't really. I think they're. I don't think is necessary. It feels like they're trying to over explain,
I mean,
especially when like everything at the cabin. I feel like what the issue is there's so much going on at the cabin. Is I feel like they thought that maybe the film would just be in constant overdrive, and they
that's kind of
saw
how
this
I
as kind of
feel.
a break, which I get, but I don't care about the characters. I don't know if that's my dis. I don't know if that's because they're so disconnected from. This is where it being a sequel to the first one makes no sense because it feels so disconnected to that first one, and like he doesn't talk about it. Like they don't ever refer to the first film. Like it's literally the same cabin. It's the same book. They say the exact same like information from the first one, just giving us more information, so it's
Yeah.
not just rehashing the same stuff, but it's like giving us the extra stuff that like all right, like if it is a sequel, you didn't need to rehash this. So it feels like it's kind of counteractive or counter achieving its own story or like its own plot.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously, I think one of the most debated aspects of the franchise, aside from like the tone shifts between like every film, is how loose it is with its continuity. And that can be extremely frustrating, especially on rewatch, because I watched The Evil Dead like last week, and then I immediately went into Evil Dead 2. And it is jarring doing that. Even if you know that Evil Dead 2 isn't really a sequel, I don't refer to it that way. I know what you're talking about, and how like Bruce Campbell is like there's an interview of him explaining how like Evil Dead, or the Evil Dead goes into Evil Dead 2 with like, him getting thrown into the forest or whatever. But it still doesn't make sense because the friends are never mentioned, his sister's never mentioned.
He totally
Why?
feels like a different character. Like
Yeah, he's a little more cocky in Evil Dead 2 comparative to the first one. But obviously, I think the problem is that the Evil Dead is trying to do something completely different to what Evil Dead 2 is. And obviously, we're not even talking about the whole rights issue, because the Evil Dead was owned by a completely different distribution company or whatever. And so they didn't have the rights to that movie when they went into Evil Dead 2. So that's why you get that like 15-20 minute rehash of the original, but it doesn't include any of the original characters. The only one returning is Linda, although she's played by a different actress. And it's odd. And so that's why I think it's a lot easier if you're doing like a marathon or anything to just start with Evil Dead 2. And yeah, I don't know. I like the changes that are made in Evil Dead 2, but I do appreciate a lot of the things that are in the first one as well.
yeah, I agree. I appreciate the splat stick stuff. That's the stuff like I come to appreciate. I think you'll hear more of that like when we talk about Army of the Dead.
You mean Army of
However,
Darkness?
yeah, Army of Darkness, Jesus
I do
Christ.
that all the time too.
Um however, I just wish the film just feels like it's trying to be two different things and
Mm,
trying to set up so much when nothing ever amounts to whatever it's trying to set up.
mm.
It goes right into Army of Darkness, and that's it. That you get the show, and it's good,
Oh,
but
Ash versus Evil Dead.
yeah, Ash versus Evil, but like it doesn't really center around anything that happens in these two films. Like the films just happened. That's all that really amounts to the shows in terms of their importance.
I will say that when I was watching Ash vs Evil Dead, the continuity did frustrate me because that's one where it's trying to imply that all of the three films are a part of the same continuity, and it still doesn't make any fucking sense. Because obviously in like season 2 you get a lot of, he's
The
returning
show
to Elk
you're gonna have to
Grove.
remind me of a little bit more because it's been a few years since I've seen it.
Yeah, so season 1 they only had the rights to the first two movies, and Ash, when
So
he's like
weird.
recounting his tale to Pablo and I can't remember the woman's name. Fuck.
No, yeah, I know
Kelly,
you're
I think
talking
her
about
name
that.
is.
Yeah, it's Kelly.
And so he's telling it as if both, and it doesn't help that it uses clips from both movies when he's like recounting it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so he's fucking like telling them like, "Oh, I went to a cabin with my friends and my girlfriend died and all of my friends died." And then in the season 2 it gets more complicated because he goes back to his hometown, Elk Grove, and everyone like thinks that he killed all of them. And then his sister comes back as a deadite and yada yada yada. It's just really awkward when you try to like piece together everything. And I had to explain to my aunt while we were watching like the whole continuity thing because in her head she's only seen Evil Dead 2 and she's like, what the fuck is he talking about? And it really doesn't make any sense, and it is, when you stop to think about it, it kind of takes you out of just like, how does any of that work? Like when does the Evil Dead meet Evil Dead 2? And how come in Evil Dead 2 none of this is mentioned aside from the obvious rights holder issues. um yeah, so it's really weird. I didn't enjoy that aspect of it. I kind of wished it had just decided to, like, in terms of like recollecting stuff from the past, it feels more like it's a sequel to The Evil Dead. But then he's missing his hand. He refers to like having been sent back to medieval times, and um stuff like that. And then obviously the style is a lot more like Evil Dead 2. So it's just weird all around.
I think my primary issue with Evil Dead 2 is it takes a little too long for the two plot points to like conjoin together, because by the time like the daughter and like I forgot, it's the daughter's boyfriend and
Yeah.
like uncle or like some guy they met on the street. I forgot what the relationship was, but by the
Her
time they
relationship
get
to
to
who?
that old man that they meet um on the
Oh, the
road,
the trucker dude.
the trucker dude, yeah.
Shit, I'm trying to remember his name.
Yeah, but
Jake.
anyway, Jake, whatever it is, like by the time they get to the cabin, there's so much shit that's happened to Ash already, and he's so far into like the story of what's actually going on that everything that you've learned up until that point, like just from their storyline, is kind of irrelevant because it's primarily all the stuff you really did know going into the film. And you
Mm.
start learning a lot of the new stuff through via Ash's storyline in the cabin, or when they start playing all of her father's tapes when they do meet. But when they meet, like, what I think the film's like an hour and a half, there's only 30 minutes left in the film. And that's like with all the credits and stuff. So the film just goes into overdrive with telling us everything it hasn't told us yet after recapping a lot. And then you have to kill everybody, but then everything, just a lot's going on in the third act because I feel like it just takes too long for them to get there. When I don't feel like it needs to. I feel like at least like Ash and then their group could have like met up on the road and then get to the cabin together, because like there's this weird forced conflict that they think that Ash killed her parents, but it's like resolved within 2 minutes. And so it essentially feels like such an irrelevant part of the issue of the plot that that story builds up to, essentially, that
Mm.
I feel like why even take so long. And okay, that feels like a over explanation, but that's
I mean,
me
I
kind
know
of.
I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying. It's and obviously all of this is really only when when you're thinking of the original, which is why I kind of prefer to watch Evil Dead 2 without revisiting the first one.
agreed.
Um and I mean, it's still weird because obviously the whole Linda storyline kind of feels underbaked in the second one because they're not really with each other for because she pretty much dies immediately, which is both a good and a bad thing. Like if you're
It's
approaching
just a
this,
bad thing.
I mean, if you're approaching it as like, oh, I've already seen the Evil Dead and I know kind of what's gonna happen, then yeah, you don't really need to waste. This is something that I really don't like about the third one, or not the third one, the fourth one, the remake, but you don't really want to waste 30 minutes dedicated to them, together in the cabin. You kind of want to just get into the good stuff. And I will say that once Ash does start to be tormented is when the movie picks up, and that's where I think it shines. And that's the remake part of the movie where they're really redoing the third act of the first one, which is also the best part of that movie, the way that they kind of originally wanted to. And I do like that stuff. I agree with what you're saying in terms of like, cutting back and forth. It doesn't happen a lot, but in terms of like cutting back and forth to set up the other characters coming in it can be a little awkward at times, but I think it's at least quick and short enough that it doesn't really affect my viewing experience. And I do like that we at least spend a little time getting to know the characters before they meet up with Ash. And I also like that, at least in terms of the overall story, them believing that Ash killed them or killed her parents is at least good in setting up the fact that they've locked him down there with the deadite version of Henrietta.
Yeah. Well, I like it. I just think they inherently wrote themselves into a corner trying to make Linda a part of the story
Mm.
because I just don't know why you include her if one, you're going to kill her off so early if she's not going to have any consequence to A, the story, or B, the main character. And that's my issue. She essentially feels useless, and I'd much rather figured them a way to work the story into having the other characters like run into Ash, because now they kill her so fast. Ash is in the cabin by himself alone, where it he's just alone by himself too much, where it just gets a little repetitive of it just becoming almost like a sketch comedy show up
Oh,
until they like that other group, the B plot line gets to the cabin. And that's why I think the movie really shines in the third act, because that's when I feel like all the pieces come together. I just feel like there's a bunch of individual good pieces misplaced leading up to that throughout. That kind of frustrates me between
yeah.
the B plot and the skit comedy that Ash is doing. Between, like, I really like him turning into a deadite and him cutting off his arm and all that. That's great, but it's followed up, not followed up, but there's the scene before that of him being tormented by Deadite Linda, and that's like a whole nother sketch. So it doesn't feel like it's inherently as important or a shining moment, because it just feels like another bit to me.
I think the only thing that I really like about the Linda stuff is when he goes into the cabin and he's kind of forced to, use the chainsaw on her. That's really the only moment that I think works. Cuz obviously her dancing and stuff isn't, the most interesting stuff. And it kind of does feel like it takes a while for it to get to the point. I understand what their intention was, but it doesn't work as well given that, most people probably have already seen the original one, and also we've spent not as much time with Linda and Ash, like, being together and around each other. While I appreciate, them trying to get to the point, given that, the Evil Dead has already been out and whatnot, it is a little frustrating when you're trying to view it as like a standalone piece.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like I'm kind of conflicted, because like I like the slapstick. I like the mythology, like the world they're expanding on from the first one. Like it's all good stuff there. Like you said, it just kind of feels like it's put in weird spots. I kind of wish like they cut Linda out. And
Mm.
I wish, like, even though this leans more into the comedic side, I do wish the tone was a little bit more balanced, or at least a little bit more of what it wants to be. Because at times it does feel a little bit confusing between wanting to be like straight horror or like slapstick.
I understand that. I do still think it works. In my opinion, I think it still works. It's because obviously, if you're looking at like the other two entries that Sam Raimi was directly responsible for, it you can kind of tell that the first one is much more of like a straight horror film, and then the third one's more like an action adventure comedy type deal. So I think Evil Dead 2 in comparison has a better overall tonal balance. But I think if I understand what you're saying in terms of like, if you're looking to the franchise for a specific thing, you're not really going to get it. But I think that's part of why this franchise feels so unique. And it's kind of
Yeah.
something that I don't like about the later films, cuz I know I told you this before. Back when Evil Dead Rise was coming out, I was in I'm trying to remember which one it was. I don't think it was editing, but it might have been like post production for like junior year or whatever. And one of our classmates came in and he was talking like, oh yeah, I just went and saw Evil Dead Rise, and we were like, oh, how was it? And he said something that I didn't really agree with, even though I hadn't seen the film yet, like the beginning. He was like, oh yeah, I really liked it. It doesn't have all like the dumb uh like humor shit in it, or something to that effect. And I kind of just looked at him and I was like, but that's kind of like the best part of those movies. And he was like, eh. And I was just like, and I really don't like the overly serious tone, because then it kind of just feels like your average horror film. And that's to me what I don't like about the remake. I do think it's handled better in Evil Dead Rise, but I still prefer Evil Dead 2 over all of them.
Well, the the one thing I will say is, what is it, 1987, 1993, 6 years later. Uh, weird, just just a weird follow up after one weird follow up. Like
Talking about Army of
Ar-
Darkness.
Army of Darkness being the third in a trilogy that really isn't a trilogy. That's really kind of a duology, but has a totally different name from what the first two films are, and just has a different setting. Like this is a weird and wacky film, and I absolutely fucking love it.
It is really great. So, like I was saying earlier, I had only ever seen Evil Dead 2, and then more recently I finally found like a cheap copy of the movie. And watching that was a different experience. I did watch, it was the theatrical version, which is not my favorite of them, but there's still a lot of good stuff in it. I don't know if you've seen any of the other ones though, because there's like five different versions of this movie.
Well, yeah, I was about to say there's a United States version, an international director's cut. What are the
Hold on a second, I
others?
have all of them.
Because going back to what I was saying before about like, or what you were saying before about the genres, this one's like not even horror adjacent. It's categorized as a dark fantasy comedy film,
Yeah.
which is just so wildly bizarre, but I kind of love the strides that Sam Raimi was taking. And interesting note, the person who helped to write this film was with him was the third Raimi brother, Ivan Raimi, not
Oh
Ted
yeah, yeah.
Raimi, not the one you see in like all of his films making cameos, or the guy that is in all three Spider-Man films
You mean the
for the
best
Daily
character in those
Bugle.
movies?
The nerdy dude with glasses. Glasses.
All right, I have. So I I liked this movie so much that I bought the Steelbook collection, which comes with all of the versions or the regularly available versions. It comes with both the 4K and Blu version of the theatrical cut, which is really the U.S. theatrical cut. It's not like the one that was shown overseas. Then it's got the director's cut, and then it's got the international cut and the television cut. So that's how many versions there are of this movie. I think there's a specific German version too. Um,
Yeah, I'm looking. I'm trying to look it up. I found the 4K collector's edition.
that's
I'm
the one that
assuming,
I have.
is that it? Or wait, hold up. The limited edition steelbook.
Yeah, that's the one that I have.
Is it the one
It's
with the
actually
custom
relatively
art?
cheap. I think I only paid like $25 for it. It's really cool. I like it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a sick cover, bro.
yeah. Oh, it's so fucking badass.
Bro, I have the Amazon exclusive Spider-Man No Way Home one and Venom one.
The steel books.
Yeah, bro, they're actually ridiculously fucking sick. I'll send you photos after we record this.
Okay. But anyways, yeah, I just find it funny. I prefer the director's cut. The only things that now that I've watched Ash versus Evil Dead, I do kind of prefer the theatrical cut ending. Um,
That's the
but I
one with the grocery store, right?
yeah, with the S Smart one.
What,
But
what's the other endings?
so
Because I haven't seen them.
the only other ending is the one where it's considered the dark ending, which is the original one that Sam Raimi wanted to include in the movie, which is Ash in Ash fashion accidentally takes too many drops and of like the potion that they make to send him back to the future. And so he ends up waking up in a post-apocalyptic
Yeah,
future,
I think I
and
read that.
it's this really cool like I think it's called intravision shot where he's just standing in like the rubble and he's just like no, no. It is really funny, but I also like the theatrical version ending isn't bad either. And obviously you do have that moment where he's he's like
It's
hail to the
funny you
king
say that because
baby.
it's a pretty iconic ending too. Now, I would
Yeah,
say at least for in like the in not horror sphere, but like the movie sphere, like that "Hail to the King, baby" line. I've seen in plenty of like cinema highlight reels. You know,
yeah. I think it's just that that's the ending that people in the US were like we never saw the original one. The original one was only ever released in like the UK and like um some other international regions. And so
well, that's the thing with this film too. It's a lot more like not as violent. Like it's fucking PG-13,
is
which
it?
is yeah, dude. This movie's PG-13.
I thought it was still R.
No, dude. There's no there's like barely any cursing, like no bad words, really
Well, there's a
bad words.
couple.
There's
No,
like
it's rated
shit.
R. The
No,
theatrical
it's
cut's rated
not,
R.
bro.
Yes, it is. I'm looking at the DVD right now, dude.
No, it's not.
The
Shit.
theatrical version says that it's rated R, and then the other ones are not rated.
No way. Hold up.
Yeah,
Let me see. Let me see what IMDb says. I'm just curious now because I always thought it was PG-13.
no, it's still rated R.
I don't know how, bro. It's got no blood. It's he doesn't say like any really bad word. Like
There's
it's
only a couple of times where he says there's a really funny part when he comes back after retrieving the Necronomicon where he's like walking past the crowd of cheering people and he's just like get the fuck out of my way. But yeah,
I
you're
thought
right.
he
It's not
said,
it's
yeah,
in
I thought he said get
comparison.
the hell out of my way in that scene.
No, he says fuck.
Does he?
Yeah, he does.
Wow, bro, man, I must say fuck pretty often that I just don't hear it anymore, bro.
I just think that goes to speak to the massive tonal shift that we can't even like remember properly like
This
if it
movie's just a
was or
total
wasn't.
joke.
It kind of is, but I love it.
Yeah, no, it totally knows what it is and what it wants to be. That seeing a zombie Ash by the end of the film is probably fucking sick. And like the fact that it turns into like a Timu fucking Game of Thrones episode at the end is kind of awesome. Like,
Honestly, I still think that ending battle scene is better than the Winterfell battle scene.
well, I'll say this. I have it, like, I watched it on my 56-inch TV that I have at home,
Oh,
and, like, it doesn't look bad. Like, the visual effects, the sets, like, it all holds up, which I think is kind of funny. Because I remember it looking awful last time.
well, that's the other thing too, because the steelbook version that I have is it comes so the only version that's actually in 4K is the theatrical version. But the other ones, it's at least on the like L back thing or whatever that like lists all the special features and stuff. It still shows that it's the Blu-ray versions of like the director's cut and the international and whatnot are still taken from a 4K remaster, so it's still very high quality. And I remember watching it because I had seen the first time I watched it was was on DVD, and it looked good on DVD. But then I put on the Blu-ray version, and I immediately saw things that I didn't notice when I first watched it. Like at the beginning of the movie, there's a shot of Ash when he's in like the desert, being surrounded by all the knights and stuff, where there's just so much dirt on the lens. And
Yeah.
then you can see like wires as well, like later in the movie that I thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, you're right. It still does hold up surprisingly well. The stop motion stuff not as much, but it's not in the movie as much.
But I
Um,
think what I'll say towards it though is it's in line with what the franchise is like shown us it to be. So
yeah.
to me, I feel like it might be more of a creative choice
Mm.
rather than it's just bad VFX, if you know what I
No, yeah,
mean.
yeah. It's definitely intended to look like that because obviously they're trying to pay homage to like Ray Harryhausen and
Yeah,
his work, especially like Jason and the Argonauts.
yeah. Oh, easily 100%. Because the scene I think about that like really stood out to me that I was kind of quite impressed to coming back and watching was when he was like trying to step on like his little mini me's.
Oh,
I thought I was expecting you to say something after
well,
the
I was thinking because I forgot about that scene, and then when you said that, I was remembering like one of the main differences between the theatrical and the director's cut is that scene specifically was heavily cut in all of the other versions. Um, and I think the director's cut is the only one that I kind of like. It does go on for a little bit, maybe too long. But I do like that. That's where the comedy stuff works the most, and it's the most Evil Dead like, if that makes sense, of like sequence in the entire movie, and that's kind of what I
yeah.
liked about it.
Honestly, my favorite scene is I think it's after is when bro, this is what I think is the most Evil Dead franchise scene as it gets is when Ash goes up and has to choose one of the books and he chooses the wrong
Oh,
books and then says the wrong phrases
oh
and
yeah. What is
to
it?
raise Dios ex Maku, but like
No, it's
he starts it, and then by the third word, he just totally stops and then looks at. This is where I think Ash Williams, Bruce Campbell, like kind of clash together as like a symbiote, and Bruce Campbell is like fully in his jive here.
yeah.
He's just so good as not only an actor but a comedic physical performer in this film that
This is where the
it's
Bugs Bunny stuff
unbelievable.
comes in.
No, totally 100%. Like the dude literally when he's coming out of one of the books, his jaw is like totally disformed and misaligned,
I love
and it's
that
like
part.
missculpted almost like clay, and he has to like reform it. Like it's so cartoony, and it's I love it so much. It's just a really good Looney Tune splat comedy type stuff.
I think that's one of the scenes where the special effects do shine because you've got like the prosthetics of his like misformed like mouth, and even like when he first opens the book and he's like getting sucked in and whatnot. It's really well done. I love how it's shot, and it feels real in a way that some of the other ones don't. But anyways, the phrase is Klaatu Barada Niktu, and he says the first two words, and then he like goes like like he's coughing or whatever.
And then he goes, he's like, damn, it starts with an N, I think.
Oh yeah, he's like
And
trying
then
to
and then
remember.
he's trying to, he goes like, and he's
He's
like,
like
no,
nickel,
nectar. And
nectar.
and he's just like, no, that's not it. Uh, it's just like, this is where I think the constant comedic stuff back to back is honed into perfection, to where I think in the second one it really needed to be spread apart with that B plot that it didn't need to in this. Because the thing I like about Army of Darkness is it's totally the opposite of your atypical hero plot line. Like, this is a guy who doesn't care about anyone and just wants to get back, and then he realizes that being in like this storyline, or not this storyline, but like this era, might kind of benefit him because he's got people benefiting him like he's a god or something, or
Oh
like
yeah.
acting towards him like he's a god, or like he can treat people the way he wants to. Like, bro, the whole shotgun stuff and the boom boom stick is some of the funniest fucking shit on this planet. This is me and my boomstick, and everyone just like shouts in terror. And by the way, it leads to one of the funniest fucking like physical performances of all time, where he shoots one of the what are they called, the it starts with an N. I don't,
The
the
knights,
no, the demons,
the deadites.
deadites. Yeah, it didn't start with an N. I'm
Yeah, it
fried.
doesn't.
But when he aims the shotgun and shoots the deadite, and it does like a fucking quadruple backspin, and it does like a triple Dutch angle fast. Like,
Oh,
I'm just
camera
like,
move. Yeah.
camera move. I'm like, bro, what is going on? This is so unserious. But like I said, this is going back to like, this is what I think it works. It's not leaning too far into it, but just enough, I think, to where it's just like, dude, this is crazy. But then it has those breaks in between where it's going through the plot line where it doesn't have to worry about going to plot A and plot B back and forth. That it's just a cool, crisp ride where I like how the story also inherently makes him the hero, where he needs to do everything himself to get out, instead of him wanting to do everything to get out, where
Mm,
he needs to learn to be the hero instead of being forced to be the hero, and he's
yeah.
like willingly acknowledging that the entire film.
I do think this. I mean, obviously, in every movie, Ash is the strongest character because every movie he kind of has like a specific arc. In the first one, you're not really expecting him to be the.
He's just
I'm
the
gonna I'm
nice
gonna call him a
guy.
final girl because he kind of fits the trope. You're not expecting him to be like the final girl of the movie. And then in Evil Dead 2, yeah, he's obviously a little more charismatic, and you see the transition from just horrified college kid to kind of like the baddest. Like he starts like saying like one liners that really shouldn't be cool, but he makes them
He
sound
makes them
cool.
so cool,
Like him
bro.
saying groovy is just the dumbest fucking shit in the world, but it sounds fucking awesome when he says it. And also I love the part in the second one where he like it always gives me chills when the Henrietta Deadeye is like, "Oh, I'll swallow your soul, I'll swallow your soul," and then he just like swallow this and shoots it in the face, and that's like turned up to 11 in this movie, where like every fucking line he says is just the hardest shit for no reason.
But like, bro, what about like at the end? He's also just like, "Give me some sugar, baby." Like the dude, he just like, it's just so good. Like another one is like, what is it? I'm looking at all the quotes because like, sure, I could have stayed in the past. I could have been king, but in my own way, I am king. And then that's when he says, "Hail to the king, baby."
Yeah, yeah,
Like, bro,
yeah.
all those quotes are within the last 10 minutes of the film. Like, it's just like, it's such a quotable film. On top of that,
It really is like it feels weird how because this probably, like, in retrospect, this probably isn't the best movie in the franchise, but I think it's easily one of the more enjoyable ones. Because there's things that I don't like about this movie, which is kind of why I was telling you earlier that I ranked this movie higher um than you'd probably expect, giving like the rating that I gave it. And part of that is just because it's just so enjoyable as like a standalone film, where you can kind of just shut your brain off and be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna watch this and have a good time." Because obviously the romance doesn't really work well for me. His love interest is kind of a nothing character, which is unfortunate because you kind of think about like, oh, this poor actress had to play this character. I think she's doing a good job. It's just there's not really much to her, as a character.
Well, I think inherently the film is making fun of like this genre of film where that a typical woman character is nothing. Because I
Mm.
mean, the Ash is talking about being in like this film esque world where he's being forced to be the hero, and he's constantly saying he's not, in a world full of witches and wizards telling him he needs to go on a quest. Like I think it's inherently objectionable, but at the same time, I don't think the film is demeaning about it. You know what I mean? Like I don't think the film is trying to say anything mean about it, where I feel like some films are.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know how else to put that, but at the
I
same
mean,
time,
kind of, but
I get what you're saying.
I it's just it's the one part of the movie that doesn't work the most for me, and I
I don't think
kind
any of
of
the
wish.
relationships have worked though in any of the films.
I mean,
That's my
no,
thing
no,
though.
that's not true.
None of them have really worked for me. I didn't care about Linda in the first one. I didn't care about Linda in the second one, and I
Mm.
don't care about the fucking girl in the third one. So that's also why like I really don't care as much. This is very much an Ash centric film, because if it was about like if the woman even really mattered, you think he would have just stayed. Like the dude's already hitting
Oh,
on another girl at the end, saying,
oh
"Yeah,
yeah.
if I wanted to be king, I would have stayed." He didn't think twice about her, so
It is really funny.
that's why I think she's just a part of the joke at the end of the day, rather than her actually trying to be a part of it, where like that's what my issue with the second one was, is
Mm,
characters were being forced into the story to get like a narrative and plot point through when
mm,
like they don't have to, and in this film they're making it the butt of the joke,
mm.
or like just some washed character that is inherently just someone that Ash Williams can just push off to the side. um But yeah, you want to get into the remake, because I know that's where me and you are gonna really start getting into some. I don't.
Hot
I feel
takes.
like this is the only one where me and you are gonna be different on, because I feel like me and you are gonna be pretty similar on our eyes to a certain extent.
I mean, honestly, I was kind of surprised at how different our perspectives were on like the first two. I'm surprised you and I have like similar, I guess similar criticisms and appreciations for like the third one. I feel like the third one's probably one of the more polarizing ones, like in within the franchise. But I don't know. I think that one's one of my favorites.
Can't say that about the remake, but
The remake. Okay,
I think
I just got to get off my chest. This is my least favorite. It's by far the worst one.
that is crazy to me.
I know I was telling you before we jumped on here that I think this one got a little overhyped to me. I know that you were saying you really liked it, but it's not really what I'm talking about, because there was a YouTuber that you put me onto called Ryan Hollinger, and I was watching his episode or his video on like the a retrospective of like the entire franchise. I know he has one on Evil Dead specifically, and I haven't watched that one. But in his video, he was talking about like how he liked it as a remake, and it was essentially like trying to do more effectively what the original did. And I just don't agree with that, because even the original one, despite how like obviously low budget it is, I still cared about what was going on, and I didn't care for jack shit that was going on in the remake.
I think I might just have a soft spot for this film. I'm just gonna state that
What
right
for
now.
though? Like
So listen, bro. All right. So the poster says the most terrifying film you'll ever experience.
that's a lie.
Now, bro, shut the fuck up and listen. I swear to God, this was the most terrifying film I'd ever seen at the time of my life. Listen, I was 13, and the same weekend this came out, I think it was like the 25th anniversary of or 20th anniversary of Jurassic Park.
Mm.
So me and my friend got tickets for Jurassic Park and snuck into Evil Dead because we didn't believe it was the most terrifying film we'd ever seen. And I thought it was the most terrifying film I'd ever fucking seen. And to put into context, have you ever seen any of Fede Alvarez's other films that he wrote slash directed?
This
Because
is the
or
only.
no, not no, he wrote slash or did he write the new Alien film?
He
Because I
might have
know
co-wrote it.
I think he co-wrote slash directed the new Alien, and then he produced the Netflix Texas Chainsaw film.
Yeah, he
That
co-wrote Alien Romulus.
tell me, did he co-write or have a story credit for the Netflix Texas Chainsaw film? Because I know he's a producer on it, but
The 2022 version.
yeah, the 22 version.
Let me pull up the Wikipedia real
Because
quick.
I feel like if anything, he has a story credit.
Why did it give me the original one? That's not what I fucking wanted. You fucking whore. He has a story by credit on Texas Chainsaw.
Okay,
Right
that's
there.
what I thought. He gave some story credit there, but he's mainly a producer. Have you seen either of the two films?
Romulus or Texas Chainsaw?
Yeah.
No. The only Fede Alvarez movie that I have currently seen is Evil Dead.
Okay, because I think you're going to find this ironic. I think the Netflix Texas Chainsaw film is probably one of the worst horror films I've seen of all time.
I
On
mean, I
top
know it
of
wasn't received well.
no, like, dude, it like me and you have spoken about the franchise. I would much rather watch any other film in the franchise before that one. On top of, I liked Alien Romulus, but I don't think it was anything special. Like, I think it's overhyped.
Mm.
So to come back to like Evil Dead, I think I want you to watch those two now because they feel very in vein of Evil Dead to a certain extent. I
I
don't know
mean,
how to put it.
I'm gonna
Um,
watch Alien Romulus because I am a big fan of the Alien franchise. I haven't gotten around to watching Romulus. I don't ever want to revisit Texas Chainsaw. I'm sorry.
no, bro, please just watch
Because
this
didn't he
one.
do a different one? Like, didn't he direct that Lights Out movie? Oh no, that's a
Oh
different
my,
guy. Sorry, I'm
no,
thinking of a different guy.
yeah, I'm like no,
There was
like
a
who
different
did do
movie he
that?
directed, didn't he? I'm
No,
trying to think of movies he's
I'm pretty
directed.
sure it was just those
Oh,
two.
Don't Breathe is the one I'm thinking of.
Don't breathe. Oh my fucking god, brother! On good this. Oh, I don't want to talk about that
He
movie.
directed The Girl in the Spider's Web.
Oh, I don't want to talk about Don't Breathe. Oh, at least I don't want to talk about the sequel. The first one's good. The one he made is actually pretty good.
Don't Breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't
Don't.
direct Don't Breathe 2.
Yeah, no. Don't Breathe 2 is absolute trash. Like I
Evil
hate to
Dead was
say
his
that.
first movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Evil Dead was his true first film. It's dude, for what it's worth, it's a good first film. Like I don't know. Like
Is it
I'm
though?
not, bro. I really like the fucking the gore in this, and I'm not talking about
Okay,
just like
here's
the
the thing
blood.
though. If
I'm not
like
talking about the
if
blood. Like, yeah, go ahead.
here's my only thing. I agree with what you're saying. Like the movie looks good and the gore is like really like top notch. But if that's all the movie has going for it, then is it really a good movie?
I don't know. I like Jane Levy as the sister Mia in the
My thing
film.
is like she's not
I'm
in the
not saying
movie
any.
enough.
I'm not saying anyone else is like that fantastic in the film, but I think she does enough with what the film is given, and I like. I'm not saying it's a twist in terms of the film itself, but I like how it's a reverse on like the Ash character because I feel like the entire time you're kind of expecting her brother to come out of it, and it's her who, like, it's not the deepest metaphor for addiction, I think, but I do like what's presented. It's something way more than I think what the first two films in the series do in terms of any story. The
Mm.
second one is literally just world building the entire time while Ash is just hacking himself away. Like that's my main argument is like I get it's not a deep or thrilling storyline and I'm not saying that what they're saying about addiction is inherently amazing, but I appreciate they're at least attempting to make something out of it where at least the first one, because that's what it's in directly trying to remake, right? Is instead of just making it a gore fest or just like these teenagers going into the woods, they're trying to add something more to it, whether it's something groundbreaking that's like not for me to like sit here and argue about because it's not, but like you're not going to get an Ash lead, I think, in this film. It's not meant for that, but also, I don't know if you could get someone like that to be this franchise. And I don't know if that's what, like, you're looking for. Because, like, what are you expecting from this film?
So here's the thing. My thing. I knew it wasn't gonna be Ash related. I knew we weren't gonna get a character like Ash. That's not my problem. My problem is just that I get what you're saying with like the metaphor for addiction, which is whatever. My thing is that the addiction metaphor doesn't work because the movie doesn't really have anything to do with that. Like, yeah, that's the setup, and the setup is fine, but the metaphor quickly gets lost because it starts focusing on like the other characters, and the other characters quickly like realize that it's not a drug thing, it's like a real like demon possession thing. And I like the ending of the movie. It's just that it's like 13 to 15 minutes of the movie and the rest of it is just kind of meh. And so I think the movie would have worked better if it focused more on fuck, what's her name? Mia, the Mia's character, but it doesn't, and none of the other characters are interesting enough for me to really care. And that's my problem, is that I agree with what you're saying. Like the Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 aren't really saying much of anything, but I got invested in the struggle of the characters in a way that I don't feel about the remake. Because say what you will about the first one, and it's kind of cheap, and you can kind of tell the limitations and how inexperienced everyone. I still liked that the characters were friends. And in this movie, the characters don't behave like they're friends. Like they kind of spend the entire movie like miserable with each other, and that really threw me off because I didn't care when any of them died. There's at least a little something to like the relationship between fuck, I don't even remember the characters' names. What's
The
the name
brother,
of
right?
the
Eric?
brothers? David
Oh,
and
David, yeah.
Eric is the blonde dude, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the
There's at
nerd.
least like kind of a payoff to them disliking each other, but like Olivia's kind of just a bitch for no reason. His girlfriend, what, Natalie or whatever, she's a nothing character. Like she doesn't do anything. Um, I don't know. It just I they and it also doesn't help that the first 30 minutes of the movie, which is dedicated to like them just not dealing with any creepy shit, is mostly them expositing information to each other, and they don't talk in a natural way, on top of the fact that I know that they don't really like each other for no apparent reason. And so that was part of why when I first started watching it, I was just like, this is not doing it for me. And yeah, it kind of picks up when like the gory stuff happens, but it wasn't enough for me. And then it like quickly shifts protagonists at the end, which again was just very awkward to me. Even as much as I enjoyed it, the only reason I enjoyed it was because it was more Evil Dead esque than the rest of the movie.
The thing that I struggle with when it comes to, like, I agree with what you're saying in terms of like the characters, their relationship, and them not really being fleshed out too much. The thing that I'm trying to remember what it is when like the writer or whoever it is isn't using enough of the time they're given in the script. And I think that's inherently obvious in the beginning, like the first 15-minute opening, 15-20 minutes. Me and you spoke about this a little bit the other
Oh, you mean the
night.
prologue?
Yeah, like the mini prologue.
Yeah, I hate that.
Inherently by itself, it's not a bad scene, but it amounts to nothing when the film could have made that, not that scene in particular, but they could have made the prologue something meaningful to kind of flesh out Mia and David's relationship, or like their friendship as a group, the four of them, before like her, like show like a drug addiction problem that like caused them to have like an issue with one another, because like you were saying, all of their problems with each other kind of feel forced and
Yeah.
like really unregarded. And so when I made the joke to you, when David comes and he's like, "Wait, what do you mean Mia had another overdose and she died?" Like, bro, did your friends not bother to reach out to you or something to let you know that your sister's like dead in the hospital and they're resuscitating her? Like, so to me, that's just like a crazy idea that, to me, it doesn't feel like they worked. They tried to do too much with what they gave themselves.
Yeah. I mean, it's not inherently a bad situation like for a scene. My problem
That's
is
what I'm
that
saying.
I've
It's
already
not bad.
spent the last 15 minutes hearing them like tell each other things that they should already know, that it makes it a little bit more obvious that it's just like, why don't you know this? I get that he's like supposed to be estranged from all of them at this point, but it still felt really awkward in the way it was portrayed because of everything around it. And the movie just keeps doing that. And it really started to get on my nerves. Um, and so that's the reason why I don't really like this movie, because it it's trying to say something interesting and different. It just doesn't do it very well. And so I that's the reason why I think the other ones are better, because yeah, it's not really trying to they're not really trying to say much of anything, but they're better at executing their stories for some reason.
Yeah, I totally get it. I'm also someone who kind of appreciates taking a general look at something that's come before. Like, I think what people had with all the issues with like all those early 2010 remakes of like old horror classics is, I don't mind a remake happening, even if it's not doing anything different. I just appreciate someone coming in and making like something,
Mm,
just because like I love those characters, or like I love a franchise. Like, the problem with the 2010 Nightmare film isn't the fact that it's almost a shot for shot remake. It's the thing that they decided to change is inherently awful. You know what I mean? And like
yeah.
they dedicate a lot of time to it. And I don't have those same problems with Evil Dead, especially for like a first time filmmaker. I don't
Mm,
feel like he's doing anything outrageous or anything too disastrous. I think everything he's saying and doing is kind of just to the point, and like you were saying, it's not deep, and I don't think these characters are very fleshed out, but I think you get enough of their relationship to move forward through their actions, is how I feel like I can get past it enough. Because like you made a point how in the first two films you felt more connected to the characters and like their ambitions to the story and what they were driving for. I don't feel that same way towards those, so I don't inherently care enough about those characters already where I'm going back and looking at them, I feel like, in the same way.
Mm.
So looking at this remake, I already don't care enough that I don't care enough about those characters because I've already felt that way with those first three films that that's kind of like the last thing on the list that I'm looking forward to in these films. And I think it builds on the promise of doing something different and changing the narrative at the end. I don't know if you know about the post credit scene, but we'll talk about that for a minute.
I knew about it before I watched it, and I did
Okay,
see it
good.
when I was watching.
It's so laughably bad because it makes no sense, but neither
I
here
I mean,
or there.
I know
Um,
that they were intending to converge the Mia and Ash
well,
storylines.
bro, they
I
sit
don't
on his
know.
car in the beginning of the film when he
Yeah.
first gets to the shack.
I it
Um,
I think the problem is that it doesn't explain how any of it
it's just there.
connects.
It's
Yeah,
just
because the
there.
Necronomicon is different in this movie than it is in the other ones, like in the main timeline. Or and in this movie, like in the plot of it, they explain to each other and the audience that um it's their family cabin, and so I don't know, and the forest looks different too, and the cabin does too. None of it makes sense, is my thing.
Well,
So
this is where like the point of like not using up your time properly goes into like they could have used those first 15 minutes for anything in the world. Except and they use it for a pointless father killing his daughter because oh man, we're going to just watch his father burn his daughter
Hmm.
on fire. And
Well, see, that's the other thing that I like about the original ones, like the first two, is that they're walking into it unknowingly, and kind of so is the audience, and that's part of why you kind of feel like you're with the characters and figuring out what's going on. But when you start the movie with like immediate like scary shit, quote unquote, it
but then
kind of
okay,
ruins the mystery and the tension, I feel.
my argument though would be if they did that, would we be sitting here and having the argument that it's just doing the same thing? Because that, like, I'm not inherently disagreeing with what you're saying where they needed to change it, but I don't think doing the same thing that's made the others work is also the answer because then I would sit
But if
here and
the
just
old
say
but
it's
if the,
outdone.
if the original ones work and this one doesn't, I feel like that's a
But
problem.
because that worked, I don't know if I could trust Fede to do exactly what made that work because he's just inherently a different filmmaker. And I just don't know if he's someone who understands what Evil Dead is too. So
Yeah.
that's because like it doesn't really feel Evil Deady like from what you were saying. This very much
Yeah.
feels like a different take and like I like the way that his take on the Deadites too. I like how it turns into this more what I think we see in Rise, where it's that mix of being overly violent with itself and overly dark humor at the same time. Where I like the blend in this. Like, if we're excluding Rise up until the point, I think this film does it the best in terms of mixing the dark comedy. If we're just talking about like dialogue, I'm not talking about like just like the splat stick in itself.
I would agree with you if I hadn't seen Ash vs. Evil Dead. I think Ash vs. Evil Dead does the Deadites better.
No, I don't disagree. That's why I was saying if
Oh,
pre
that's right. You were saying like,
pre
yeah. No,
yeah, no, I
that's true.
agree.
That's
I
true.
agree.
I like his take on the Deadites. I don't like his take on anything else because of what you were saying, and that it's really not. It doesn't feel like Evil Dead, and I don't. You're right. I don't think he understands the franchise, and that's really what bothers me. And going back to what you were saying with you already didn't care about the characters, and I think that also affected my viewing experience because I did care about the characters in the first two. It's just if you already don't care, then what's the point in doing a remake if it's not going to improve on anything that came before? because I do agree there's nothing in here that's drastically so different like the Nightmare on Elm Street one that really like turns you off from how much they focus on it. It's just that I don't like the direction in which he was taking the story because I feel like it's not really adding anything different. You still have the friends, they're going to a cabin, they're dealing with this shit, and there's nothing really that interesting about the characters or their relationships to each other that add to anything that I hadn't already seen done before because the movie like just shifts perspectives too many times. And so that was really my issue. I like Mia as a character. I do think the actress is doing a really good job playing the different like aspects because she's she's like not even doing double duty. She's doing like triple duty because she's playing the main version of the character as Mia, then she's playing the Deadite version, and then she's also kind of playing the whatever that abomination thing is at the end.
Yeah, I think it's
That's
literally called the Abomination. Like,
that's really cool, but it's not in the movie a lot. And we waste so much time focusing on like the weird brother stuff that I just don't really care about because I don't know who the character is before we get here because all I'm seeing is the characters explain it to me.
yeah, and that's totally fair. I get it.
But I can see what you're saying in like liking the a new approach. It's just, if you're gonna make a modern update of a movie, then I need to see something that's different. And like you lean into it.
I'm not super heavy and like it has to be massively like different or its own thing because I already feel like remakes in general already struggle with that, and I just think it's an impossible task at that point.
Hmm.
And for me, I feel like that just hinders. No, I'm not talking about like you in particular. I'm just talking about like I've seen a lot of people talk about how remakes need to just not be made. Like I know like I hate a lot of the Disney remakes, but like I like the Beauty and the Beast one. Like there's certain ones I have liked. Like I like the Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Those are the same films that other people are hating on for having the same problems as with like the current ones. And so I don't think it's inherently the problem of making a film too similar. I just think it's like the type of film itself and how you go about it, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree with you because, I like the Jungle Book remake and we talked about it on the podcast. You weren't on that episode, but, you know, I was talking with Haley about it and it's just the problem is that I think with the Disney ones, at least there's kind of a point to them being made, even if they don't do it very well. It all just comes down to how they approach the story, and I don't necessarily feel like there's anything about the original Evil Dead that really needed to be updated. And if they were going to, they didn't do the aspects that kind of needed more work any better than like Evil Dead 2 kind of already did. Um and like even them like finding the book and stuff and how all of this gets started doesn't work for me because I was kind of telling you that I didn't like how they read from the book because it just in the first one it's kind of like they're unknowingly going into this and they kind of have like some plausible deniability by like listening to the tape. And then in this one, like the dude just like actively reads from it, and it's just like, what are you doing? Like he already knows it's like witchcraft adjacent, but he still goes out of his way to like read the just everything in the movie feels like it's telling the characters not to do something, and then they still do it. So that's kind of where it feels like your average horror film where they're just making dumb mistakes so that the plot can progress, that I didn't feel like it was like in any of the other ones.
Yeah, I agree. I just always tell myself at the end of the day, would I rather something like Evil Dead or something like the 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street, where I don't know if this is just me personally. I know you probably won't have the same feelings because one, you haven't seen it, and two, you haven't seen like all of the Nightmare films.
Mm.
But that film retroactively makes me think about the background it gave Freddy when I watched the original.
Mm. That's
So
fair.
in the back of my mind, I always have the idea of what the original is subtly hinting at so well.
Mm.
And when I just inherently hate the film for that reason because now it takes away that mystery aspect of what made Freddy so frightening in that original film to me because
Mm.
they're kind of just stating it and to a point almost showing it um that it does a disservice where at least the Evil Dead or Evil Dead is just, a new filmmaker coming in. He sees the potential for wanting to make something overly violent and make the effects look good. But, like, I agree with everything you're saying. And, like, I don't come out of this feeling like it's doing a disservice to the franchise or that original film in a way that, like, the 2010 Nightmare film does.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. This movie doesn't retroactively ruin my experience with the other ones, and that's probably the best thing about it. You can approach this movie fine, like on its own. I think there's things that I like about it, given even though I've been kind of like shitting on it the whole time. I think it does kind of stand out from other remakes where it's not trying to say like, oh, the original ones are bad and I'm making it better or anything like that. So I can appreciate it for that. Um,
I just hate when films are put in that like container that if you're trying to remake something, it inherently has to be better because people are already putting their mindsets in like a checklist standard form of what makes this one work so well that
mm,
if this new thing doesn't do that exact same thing, then it's already bad. And I think I'm not saying I think some remakes do that to themselves.
yeah.
I think a lot don't at the same time. And so just this is my feeling towards remakes like horror remakes in general is like I just go into them as neutral as possible because then you could come out with films like the Texas Chainsaw early 2000 ones and the Friday the 13th 2009 one where yeah, they're remakes essentially, but they're really good. They're doing
Mm,
things differently, but like not fundamentally in a sense that you know Freddie like actually did bring children down underneath the school to sexually assault them. Like I like like that
yeah.
that's my main point of the argument. But the weird part of the franchise I think is here when we get into Ash versus the Evil Dead and then like Ash not Ash versus Evil Dead Rises, but Evil Dead Rise like a few years, 8 years after Ash versus Evil Dead ended.
It wasn't that long.
Ash versus Evil Dead ended in 18. Evil Dead Rise came out in 23. So 5 years.
Yeah.
So I don't
Listen,
know. This is where
I
timeline really gets fucked up too.
yeah.
Because
We already talked about like the whole continuity stuff. That aside, I like Ash vs Evil Dead for what it is. It's not the perfect format for the franchise, and I kind of wished that we had just gotten like a sequel to Army of Darkness or whatever. But at this point, I we kind of just have to take what we can get. That's kind of my feeling towards it. I don't know what you feel. I know it's been a while since you've seen it.
I really like the show.
Mm.
This is one of the cases where the ending ruins it
You mean because it got canceled?
because it got canceled. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this franchise has always
It's
been
got one of the
fraught.
worst endings in fucking history, bro.
I mean, I like the callback to the original ending of Army of Darkness. Um, but it really does suck that it ended on such a massive cliffhanger, and
Well,
there's
it's
not.
essentially what Raimi wanted to do with Army of Darkness. Send Ash into like a devastated future.
I think in Army of Darkness it works because it feels fitting for the version of Ash in Army of Darkness to do something so stupid as taking an extra drop and waking up in a post-apocalyptic world. The problem is that Evil or Ash vs. Evil Dead sets it up as like a continuation to the story in
Yeah.
promising us to see him interacting with the post-apocalyptic world, and it just really sucks that we never got to see really a satisfying conclusion to that story. I think the series would work so much better if it didn't, if we just stopped the season with him sacrificing himself.
It
But
would have
yeah,
worked.
so that's my thing.
Yeah, I don't really have too many deep thoughts on the show. Like I said,
I think the only thing is that, it can sometimes feel a bit repetitive. Season 1, I like most of the stuff about it. Obviously the core trio, they're really good like throughout the entire show.
hmm
I don't like the like FBI character or whatever. I mean, she's fine when when her storyline converges with the main trio, but like most of her stuff is like incredibly uninteresting for like the first half of the season. Um, I like us returning to the cabin in the first season. I don't like us returning to the cabin in the second season, especially knowing what I know now about like the troubled production of that season. Because the original showrunner for Ash vs. Evil Dead, trying to remember his name, um, I don't remember his name, but he didn't get along with Rob Tappert, one of the original producers of the original Evil Dead franchise, and it got so bad that not only did the showrunner leave after the second season, but the ending of the second season was drastically changed from the original proposed or written script, which also ended up affecting season 3. I like season 3 for what it is, but you can definitely tell that it was kind of a sinking ship. So that's the problem with Ash versus Evil Dead, in my opinion.
yeah, no, I agree. The daughter character kind of feels like shoehorned in,
Well,
and none of
you know why?
no.
Because at the end of season 2, when they go back in time, Ash was supposed to successfully um,
Pull out or
change
something.
the timeline,
Oh,
but in doing so, he retroactively makes Kelly his daughter, and that was the approved script for the season finale. And Bruce Campbell was on board with it, and the actress for Kelly was on board for it. But that was the thing. That was when Rob Tappert stepped in, and he was like, and he already didn't feel like a lot of the stuff that they were doing for the first 2 seasons wasn't Evil Dead. Like he that was a quote that I heard where he was like, "Oh, this isn't Evil Dead," and the whole time I'm kind of just sitting there like, "It is though. Like this is very Evil Dead."
no, it was a very Evil Dead show. That was like the
Yeah,
highest regard I could give it. Is like it felt very in vein of the franchise, and Bruce Campbell just like went right back into his role.
yeah. See, that's what I'm thinking. And so yeah, he stepped in. He didn't like any of that, so he scrapped the original planned ending for season 2. And then Kelly doesn't really have anything to do in season 3. I also, another thing that I don't like about season 3 is the Knights of Samaria, because they really don't do anything. They're pretty useless.
I forgot about them.
Because you've got the one guy that like it's implied heavily that Kelly is fucking, and he just dies immediately. The way that heard it put was they're really kind of more like cannon fodder, and I didn't like that because it's at that point it's kind of the same with like Linda and all that. Like, why introduce them if you're not going to do anything interesting with those characters? And when I first started watching season 3, I was like, I totally thought that it was gonna connect more to Army of Darkness, and it just never does. Because I thought like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting if like the Knights of Samaria are descendants of Ash from the
Back
woman,
then when he went, yeah,
yeah, from the woman that fuck, what's her name?
I don't remember, bro.
Hold on a second. Sheila.
Sheila.
I was like, oh, that would be really interesting, and then nothing ever comes of it, and I was really disappointed. Um, but yeah, those are my thoughts on Ash versus Evil Dead. I think overall it's a good experience, but it's not for everyone.
So something I find really interesting that I don't know if you knew this at all, but for years and years, people have been like fighting to get a Freddy versus Jason versus Ash film made. And so in 2007 and in 2009, they made comic novels or graphic novels on it, along with, you're going to find this fucking hilarious. In 2007, I don't know which one released first, but they also released a Marvel Zombies versus the Army of Darkness graphic novel.
I've heard of that.
So the people there, I've never seen it. I've only seen cover art of the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash graphic novels, but there's one way to see them fight. I don't know. I just think that's interesting because I think that'd be a really cool fucking movie.
I think that would have been really cool if it came out in the 90s or the 2000s, but it's
Yeah, it's too
it's
late
it's
now.
too late, and that's my main criticism of the franchise is that
A
it's
little
too
too late.
late to do anything more. And I think that's why you have like the 2013 remake, and then you have Evil Dead Rise, which really doesn't have anything to do with the other movies, to the point that they even introduce a different version of the Necronomicon. Um,
And like a different backstory with what's his name, the doctor,
the Doctor,
or like the one who finds it. I can't remember his name.
the kid or the priest.
No, no, my God. Hold up. I'm looking at the cast list, brother. Nobi. Like they do like the whole thing with Nobi again.
They do.
Yeah, bro. When fucking, oh my God, dude. I'm really bad at remembering all of the Evil Dead Rise characters' names. It's kind of bad. But when Beth, remember like Beth and Danny, they both like separately listened to the tapes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was different from the first one.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's different because
But that
in
goes
the
to my point.
backstory is different, like you were saying,
No,
where
I know, yeah.
it's a priest who finds the book and he secretly is translating it, and that leads to his own like his own dealings with the Deadites, and he makes the recordings and shit and whatnot, and then they seal the book and whatever.
Yeah, like I kind of feel indifferent about Evil Dead Rise now, just because I like so much of it, but also there's so much that I'm about. The acting is really good, but I don't think a lot of the characters are written that well. Um, in particular, but the one thing that always makes me laugh is when Ellie, like before she fully changes into the Deadite, she says, "Make sure like it doesn't take my babies."
Mm.
Fucking thing kills 2 out of the 3 children. So Ellie already failed at being a mother there. When most of the plot they're trying to tell us like, oh Ellie, you're gonna be a good mom. Even when the Cassie Bridget Cassie was
Cassie,
like,
yeah.
you'd be a great mom because you're great at lying it to children. Like they're trying to hammer in the whole time. It's just like, bro, she let 2 of the 3 of the kids die. That third kid should have fucking died too. But I'll also say this: the movie constantly contradicts its own rules to a point that it annoyed me.
How so?
Um, I felt like in this film they treated Deadites as more like Deadites are still the same, but they treated it as like more of a disease than I think the others did. Like in the remake, they treated it like an infectious disease where like the blonde girlfriend cuts her arm off or whatever. But in this one, it's like you get some blood in your mouth, it takes control over you, but then other characters will have that same thing happen and then they won't get control, or like they seriously have to like be on the brink of death, some of them, in order for like the Deadite to take control of them. uh I don't really like, they're adding this whole new thing with them being able to conjoin, and it could just happen, they can just turn into it. And there's the whole time they're saying like, oh, the book described this, and like, did it? It just showed a picture of them conjoined. Like, none of it really makes sense, and the film never really tries to explain it outside of the new Nobi tape stuff. But all the tape stuff really isn't relevant outside of stuff we already know. And the stuff we don't know is just changing the background of characters we know, but a lot of it is still a lot of the same old stuff that they're just rehashing. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I I think the only real instance that I didn't enjoy about the new Deadites was with Bridget. I mean, I don't know. I think overall the Evil Dead series has never fully explained how that works. So it
It,
didn't really bug me as much. And obviously this is I do wish it explained the Necronomicon stuff a little more
it's
because
just
it
random.
is a
It's
little
just
weird.
there in the bottom of an apartment building. It's
I mean, no, not that. It's just I don't understand how it connects to the other one or the other version that we see in like the main series, and whether or not they're supposed to be
well, I'm not.
the
It's
same
clearly
type
not
of.
supposed to. That's what is frustrating. It's
Yeah.
clearly not the same as anything we've seen in the remake or the first three films or the TV show,
Mm.
but it's not directly telling us at the same time that.
I mean, I don't mind it not directly telling us because that was another thing that I didn't like about Evil Dead is how much of the book kind of becomes like um what's the word I'm looking for? It becomes like a guidebook in the remake that they're like constantly referring to it and it's telling them things that I feel like this version doesn't do as much. Um and I don't know. I liked the characters. I liked the story overall. It definitely does a better job of, you know,
Caring about the characters.
yeah, but I just think it does what Evil Dead was trying to do a lot better while still maintaining a more tonal and stylistic consistency with the original ones. But I mean, other than that, yeah, it's not much of anything else, if that makes sense.
I agree. I just don't know. I like the dark humor aspect of it. Like the middle half of the film, the second act, is really where I think it shines. I think it really loses me. Like I like the build up. I like the introduction to the characters. I think they set them up relatively well and give us a good idea of all their relationships. So like when the Deadite stuff starts happening, you do feel bad. I just feel like they spend way too much time saying little to nothing. And then by the time you get to the third act, it feels like it's just kind of turning into this is where all the money was put, all the blood, gore, this giant big bloody clash out that it didn't need.
Mm.
Like it felt very weird, like to have Beth and Cassie like not trying to escape, but it's like they get stuck in an elevator that gets filled with blood just so they can do like an homage to The Shining. And
I mean, I think
then,
a lot of that stuff still works in the context of the story because I think it still uses all of those not only to progress the plot but to set up like interesting, I guess, set pieces. Because the blood stuff
I
It's
mean,
one.
I
It's
would see. I would agree if it didn't feel like they indirectly went against all that with like the beginning of the film, like the opening, with like that character, like how they try to connect it. Because the thing that confuses me every time I watch this is when that character who gets possessed in the beginning of the film comes into the garage at the end.
oh
What did like one like did nothing in that building happen? Like how did she not realize anything that like I know it's a giant building, but it's a building that's run down. I'm assuming a lot of people don't live in it, but also a giant earthquake just happened that she clearly doesn't seem to be like she seems to be just coming out of some like a different film to me. To make something
um
connect where it doesn't need to.
yeah, I do agree. The
And
prologue and the ending are probably my least favorite parts of the movie. I think it gets around it by the rest of it being more interesting. Like I kind of forgot that any of that happened, but I don't yeah, I don't like that it starts and ends with that stuff because it doesn't really matter and I don't really care about any of those characters or what's happening. Um
it
and
just
and a
makes me
sim and a
question
s-
like did any of it actually happen though?
it I mean it did because you can see like all the blood and shit and whatnot.
I know, but the way that's what I'm saying. The film is telling us that this, but the way the character is written and acting is telling me something different. And that's what
Mm,
bugs me. Because to
yeah.
me, it reads that she had no clue that one, there was an earthquake going on, and two, that like there was a mass slaughter going on throughout the building. Like, you're telling me she did not hear the elevator like being tossed up and down, not only in the beginning of the film when Ellie was in it getting possessed, but when Beth and Cassie were in it, like that's the part that I'm trying to like figure out like was this like one of those things where they're telling us like the demon just took it all back, but then at the same time like you can see all the blood, you can see all this outcome, and then like what possessed her? It like the film tells me that it's an external force like the original film, but then also it's telling me that it's like a disease at the same time that through blood and other ways it can get through you, but
Mm,
other characters don't get possessed through that. Like that's why a lot of it confuses me because once I start thinking about it, there's other loops that I can get through to
yeah.
contradict it. And that's what I feel like kind of inherently bothers me with the way the film structures itself and tries to make itself an Evil Dead film.
Mm,
Because I agree that it does all of Evil Deadness right through like the violence, gore, and like the witty comments that the Deadites make, but a lot of it surrounding it feels very un-Evil Dead because it just kind of gets lost in its own writing or translation.
yeah. I do think there are instances of like plot convenience that it wasn't enough to like fully take me out, but there were a couple of times where I was like, "Oh, is that how that works?" But then it like never comes up again because I think if it just decided like, "Oh, it's more of a disease thing," then that's one thing, or if it just decided because for me the majority of the movie it's telling us or showing us that it's just once you die, then your body and it's similar to kind of how Ash versus Evil Dead is, where once you die your corpse is just um open season for it to be possessed or whatever. But yeah, it doesn't explain what the demon is or how it works or anything, which isn't exactly a disadvantage, but I think in this one it would have helped a bit if it explained it a little bit.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. What are your thoughts on like this new one coming out called Evil Dead Burn?
Having seen Evil Dead Rise, I'm I'm optimistic. I'm excited to see what they do with it because I know it's not really a sequel. It's more of like a spin-off because it's a different creative team. Um and so yeah, I'm just excited for what they're gonna do. Obviously, there's There's still a strong chance that it's not really going to be any good, but I think this is the one franchise where I feel like it has a better chance of continuing the franchise, and especially off, the success of Evil Dead Rise. So I think I'm more interested in seeing this one in theaters. I didn't get the chance to with Evil Dead Rise, and yeah, I don't know. I yeah, I'm more excited for this one.
Yeah, I Evil Dead is a franchise I'm always excited to see, but every time a new film is announced, I'm always kind of cautiously optimistic and just want to see like some first looks before I give my hopes up because I always kind of feel like it could be hit or miss. Um, and not like miss in a bad way, just kind of eh, bland in the middle. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm more afraid of than the film just kind of being bad. Is this is a franchise that is known to just be wacky, zany, and crazy, and to just make an entry that is just over the top gory, but it's just blah all around.
Yeah.
Just kind of feels like a disappointment, and that's what I'm afraid of eventually happening. I just don't know if this will be it, you know?
I think with Sam Raimi and Rob Tappert and Bruce Campbell still being producers, I think
That's
it's
the hope.
not. Yeah, it's the hope that it'll still be able to be good. I think this franchise overall is just a little frustrating in how some of these films have come to be, and how some of them haven't really lived up to like a lot of people's expectations, because obviously in Evil Dead 2 people didn't like that it was such a massive departure in terms of like tone and style, because like I was saying, the Evil Dead was meant to be more like a straight horror film and really grotesque, and then Evil Dead 2 is much more of the splatstick element, and then Army of Darkness is just not even a horror movie. And you know obviously I've said what I feel about Evil Dead, like the remake. I really want there to be more connective tissue between all the movies, and that's probably the thing that I like the least about both Evil Dead and Evil Dead Rise, is that they really don't have anything to do with the broader franchise. And that's kind of what I like about Ash versus Evil Dead, even though I have other issues with its story, is that it still feels like it's trying to be a part of the same franchise. And I really wish that we could just return to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. But I mean,
Um,
that being said, even if that's I mean, it looks like that's not the direction it's moving in. I think it could be a lot worse.
no, I agree. There's a lot of other like horror franchises that are just in shambles right now. you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
um, but let's get into ranking all the films and just giving them a quick grade and some final wrap ups.
All right. You go first.
All right, I gotta do this slowly.
Okay.
I gotta let you breathe because I don't think you're ready for this. So what? There's been 5 films, right? So
Yeah.
number 5. Damn, this is hard. I'm doing it off the top of my head because I don't think like whatever I make 5 is inherently a bad movie.
Mm.
You know, it's just like I think 5 is still going to be a good movie if anyone is wondering. But 5 is I definitely it has to be Evil Dead Rise in my
Mm.
opinion. Um, Number 4, I would probably have to say Evil Dead 2. That's going to be a hot take.
That is a hot take.
3, I would probably put the remake.
Mm.
2, I'd put the Evil Dead. And
Mm.
then 1 would probably be Army of Darkness. Dude, Army of Darkness is just the most rewatchable out of all of them. And
That's
while
true.
not a horror, it's just so fucking fun to watch.
Mm.
Bruce Campbell gives one of the best performances in any like a comedy I've seen in a hot minute. Like,
That's definitely an interesting ranking. What did you rate them?
Oh yeah, I forgot to say the ratings. I'm fried. Those I got to pull up. Evil Dead 2, 3 stars. Army of Darkness, 4 stars. Evil Dead Rise, I gave 3 stars.
Hmm.
The Evil Dead, I gave 4 stars. And then Evil Dead, I gave 3.5.
The original Evil Dead.
No, just the original Evil Dead, I gave 4. And then
Oh, the remake
Evil
you
Dead,
gave.
yeah, remake,
Okay.
I gave three and a
Okay.
half.
Interesting. Interesting. Definitely a hot take putting Evil Dead 2 so low. Um,
But that's the thing, though, is like, it's low, but like, I still really like it.
yeah, it's an important distinction that not all of these are like the worst movies ever made, and I can't really blame you because I think as iconic as this franchise is, you can't blame anyone for viewing some of these films as inferior to others, if that makes sense, because the continuity is so inconsistent and the approach to every film was so different.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, so my ranking is at dead last is Evil Dead, the 2013 remake. I really didn't enjoy this movie. I did go back and change my rating. I gave it a 2.5. It's hold on. Where's my review? Is this is definitely a remake that came out in the early 2010s.
You're just a hater, bro.
It's not that I'm trying to be a hater. I just it doesn't do anything really that good in my opinion, aside from like a couple of things. And I was really missing. I was just expecting more. Next up for 4 is the original, The Evil Dead. I gave it 4 stars. I just think it does the best with the like as being like a straight horror film
Yeah.
of the time. The characters are interesting enough. I like the evolution of the filmmaking techniques. Then for number 3, I gave for that spot is for Evil Dead Rise. Did I give this a review? I did. I gave it 4 stars. I said, so what I'm gathering here is a chainsaw is the only effective weapon against evil.
Pretty
Um,
much. Hey, and the boomstick.
that one I just thought was it's definitely a vast improvement over the 2013 remake. I liked the characters. I liked how it's kind of like the original and Evil Dead 2 in that it's contained to like one location, but it's a different location and it uses it effectively. I liked all the scares and everything. And yeah. Next up is Army of Darkness for number 2. I didn't give this one as high of a rating. I gave it a 3.5. Just yeah, I don't know. It's not what I would consider the best film, but it's just so endlessly enjoyable and like you were said, really rewatchable. Um I gave this one 2 reviews, but they're not really that important. Well, because I watched the original, the theatrical version, and I watched the director's cut, and then finally for my top is just Evil Dead 2. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I really like this one. I think it's the best of the franchise. I think it's the best at um, doing just the original concept as well as some of the comedic elements. I like the plot structure a little better, and the characters are a little more interesting. And just Ash is Ash. He's just the best character in the entire franchise.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree. But without further ado, this is another long episode. Leah, let's do final wrap ups. Thank you guys so much for checking us out, and let us know down below what you guys think of the Evil Dead franchise. But, Leo, what are we watching next week?
All right, we're wrapping up our Halloween bash with Halloween. We did the original, a month or so ago, and I promised Ryan that I would um, revisit the franchise through the lens of Rob Zombie. So we're watching his remakes from the early 2000s or whatever. This is gonna be interesting.
Yes,
Obviously,
dude, you're gonna hate them so much.
obviously, Halloween wasn't my favorite uh, film that we looked at a while ago, so I'm interested to see how this one turns out.
I can't wait to like get your fresh opinions when you watch these, bro. I swear to God, I'm excited.
I have a feeling where it's gonna go.
But without a doubt, thank you guys for checking us out. And if you guys want to stay up to date on what we're watching, check out our letterboxes below. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.